week on Face the Music, an Electric Light Orchestra song-by-song podcast, we go into the history, the chart facts, and discuss every song ELO officially released. We even consult with the Future of Humanity on their opinion of the music. We also go into music by the groups that eventually became ELO. Face the Music, an Electric Light Orchestra song-by-song podcast, can be found on many podcasting sites. And join our YouTube channel, the Electric Light Orchestra Podcast channel, for exclusive episodes.
It's a beautiful new day. Hey.
This is Tim.
This is Adam.
This is Emmett.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo. Right now I'm talking with Adam in Nagoya. How's it going?
It's going all right. It's finally getting warm and sunny, springtime. People are in the park drinking beer. It's nice.
Yeah, looking at cherry blossoms.
Right.
Okay, so this is going to be kind of a different Critiquing Comics in that both of these are by people that I'm a bit acquainted with.
Sure.
And Adam, you know Ian too, right?
Yeah, quite well, yeah.
Now, did your Big Ugly Robot publisher, did you ever publish anything he did?
Yeah, I published a couple of his books. I published one called Alone in Kyoto, and I published one called, I think it's called ALT, or Life as an ALT, or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so those two, and then whenever he finishes something new, he always sends it to me. So we've tabled together at a lot of shows, and we've known each other for quite a while.
Okay, and he's Canadian.
Yes,
yeah,
he's Canadian, and I believe almost the whole time he's been living here, he's been up in Sapporo.
Yeah,
he may have been in Tokyo or somewhere else, Kansai, for a while, but I think for most of his life here in Japan, he's been living way up in Sapporo.
Yeah, and appears that this comic is part of a Secrets of Sapporo series.
Yes, and that's actually something we can talk about a little bit later, but I love that in his recent work, he's really leaning into that kind of Hokkaido identity, the Sapporo identity. There's a lot of kind of local culture and lore and stories coming out in his recent comics that kind of lean into him being there, which is pretty cool because that's a city that doesn't get a lot of attention in Japan, and it's a very cool city. So I think it's cool to kind of incorporate that local identity. I mean, he's probably been there longer than he was in Canada, to be honest.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, we're both in that boat. So
yeah. So this is Secrets of Sapporo number 4, The Blossoming City, Part 1, by Ian M. And so this is, I assume that this is a true story or based on a true story.
Yeah. But
it's interesting because he tells pieces of the story in various ways. And it could feel a little disjointed, but I think it fits together.
Yeah, I thought that style, it reminded me a little bit of, as I was reading it, I was trying to think of who it reminded me of. It sort of reminds me of Dash Shaw a little bit in that it switches styles pretty dramatically. Uh-huh. Or even maybe like early Daniel Close, like 8-Ball kind of era. There's some, he'll go from like a sort of painted kind of illustrative style and then into something that looks like newspaper funnies from like the Sunday comics.
Yeah.
And then he'll go into something, quite different. And so it's kind of a cool narrative device where he's actually, I don't even know if it's a narrative device because it's not really connected to the story beats per se. It's sort of just kind of fun with the form, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we've got 4 pages at the start that are outlining the story of these two sisters, Yuri and Sumire. By the way, this is a very, very minor point, but I was really puzzled by the first panel because he's written in Japanese Reiwa 30 in the upper corner. And so for people who don't know, so the official year in Japan is the number of years that the current emperor has been reigning.
Right.
So we're currently in the Reiwa era, but Reiwa 30 would be 2048. And that doesn't make any sense to me because he's talking, I assume, about the past, not the future. But I don't think he means Showa 30 because that would have been decades ago.
Yeah.
Or Heisei
50s.
30, maybe Heisei 30, I don't know. But yeah, that puzzled me. I'm not sure if that was an error or not, but...
Yeah, I mean, it could be something about the future. I mean, this might be something that's ongoing right now, and he's sort of, imagining what it's going to be like in the future. Although that would be a very bleak thing to write about because that would mean that they're little girls right now. And eventually one of them is going to...
And Yudi dies at the age of 42.
Right. So I'm not sure, but I would doubt it's a mistake because he's pretty meticulous about those type of things. At least when I was publishing his books, he was quite meticulous about it. I would catch things, here and there, but for the most part, he would want to fix them beforehand. So
Anyway, that aside from exactly when this is set, so neither one of them marries. Apparently, they live next door to each other, and together they've been growing a garden on that property. And so then the one sister dies, and then we break into, like you said, a Sunday comics type of thing for a couple pages,
right.
showing them as little girls. And I mean, these comics are a little bit funny. I wasn't quite sure why he went with this form, because they don't... I guess they kind of have punchlines.
Yeah, I wasn't actually looking for punchlines, so to be honest, I couldn't tell you whether or not there were. I wasn't expecting them. I thought it was just kind of an homage to that style, and not necessarily trying to make, a setup and a punchline. But yeah, I felt like it's a really cool break in the style because at first you're having this, I think the first few pages is, as I said, that very illustrative, almost painted kind of look. And then it slips into this very clean, like almost like that clear line style from France, but it's, like perfect lining, even the bubble, the lettering of, the outlines of the word balloons and all of that. It just looks perfectly clean. And, the colors don't have any gradients or anything. It's just like a flat color. And so it really pops. Those pages came out, I really felt like this style is very dynamic. It really stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we got that, and then the next two pages are as if they were on gray paper and drawn kind of crayon-looking style that's just in like black and gray and a kind of dull shade of blue. Well, and then when the plants are visible, then they're in green.
Right.
And we see the surviving sister just hanging out at home, and then this guy comes from a construction company and they want to buy the property, but it's going to take away the garden, so she says no.
Right. And so this would be the part where I say it was a narrative device to switch to that style, because it's kind of showing her in the shadow of, her sister passing away and trying to make a life for herself alone, when her whole life has been based on, developing this garden with her sister. And obviously, as you said, neither of them married. So they're kind of two old maids, living life together and doing all of these things together. And so when one of them's gone, she's trying to find a life after that. And so I do feel like the tone switch fits that. Mm-hmm. It would have been really kind of weird to show them as Sunday funnies in that part of it. So,
yeah.
So in that regard, the Sunday Funnies shows them as little kids, so it's almost like a Peanuts kind of homage or something like that. So, I mean, I do feel, actually, I take back what I said earlier. These do kind of hit the story beats in a way that serves the story. So, yeah.
So then we get a double page panel showing the garden and Sumire working there, and it says Sumire made their garden bigger. And then we have a couple of more simply colored pages again, just kind of, it looks like it's on maybe off-white construction paper, and the colors are all green and gray and black, and neighborhood kids are joining her and working in the garden. And suggesting vegetables they could grow there, zucchini.
I thought maybe that was not construction paper, but like washi or something, perhaps. This is a book where I think it would serve to have the original and not a PDF, because I know that Ian is a big fan of format. He likes, risograph, and he likes, kind of different sizes, kind of that aren't standardized. And a lot of his recent books that he's been putting out, they do have more kind of conscious attention to format and to the type of paper and ink that he's using. So these kind of choices might have been easier for us to kind of understand if we were holding the original in our hands, I suppose, than looking at a PDF. But
yeah,
I think a lot of the artistic choices here, what I see here is, I feel like Ian is having fun. Like his books look now where it looks like he's really kind of just playing with different styles and formats, because he's kind of mastered his craft to the point where he can just relax and not worry about the lines so much. I mean, he always, even his earlier stuff, I feel like he had a more relaxed style, but I do remember talking to him, years and years ago, where he was talking about his early career as a cartoonist. He was really trying to emulate the people that he liked, and they were all those Drawn and Quarterly or Fantagraphics kind of people. And I know that he felt that it had to fit this kind of style where he had to look like them and tell stories like them. And it wasn't until he moved to Japan and kind of started seeing other stuff that he broke that kind of habit and said, I can just draw what I want to draw and not have to pursue a particular house style or something. And that's where I really saw him start to take off and develop his own look. And as I said a moment ago, now he's doing that not only for the artwork, but also for the story. He's making his books more Hokkaido and more Sapporo. And which is, makes a lot of sense, because a lot of his sales seem to be at comic and zine events in Hokkaido. And that's going to be something that people want to pick up.
Yeah. Some product about the local area.
Right. And that adds a whole richness to the story that I think, a lot of cartoonists who live in Japan, I mean, that was my whole thing, was trying to publish people, cartoonists living in Japan as a kind of a outsider. That was the purpose of the label that I was doing. And I feel like most of the people, their stories were either not about Japan at all, or Japan was just incidental. And it's very cool to see him making it a very, making the city itself kind of a character in the story,
Yeah. And don't need to go through all of it, but he keeps changing styles every couple pages, and then there are one or two big changes in the story events. And so, yeah, this is only part one. So whatever happens with the garden and all, we'll have to find out in part two.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I actually am really looking forward to reading part two, because it leaves this on it's not like a cliffhanger, because it's not like a super ramped up, exciting point that it cuts off, but it still leaves it to the point where you want to know exactly how it got to where it is and and all of that.
Yeah,
so
it's not a shot rings out, nothing like that. But who got shot? No.
Yeah.
But yeah, what happens next with the garden and what's going to happen in this community?
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing that I really like to see. If it is a true story, then I like it all the more. But the idea of one person or a couple people really taking an initiative to improve or change their community for the better, that is something that I think is really cool. If you ever saw the movie Ikiru by Kurosawa Akira, it's a guy who spends his whole life, never takes a single day off of work, just works hard for the city hall. And then he gets diagnosed with cancer and he realizes that he hasn't had a life of any meaning at all. And so he's trying so hard to find meaning by doing all these things, spending his money that he never spent before, going out drinking, meeting ladies of the night, that kind of stuff. And the only thing he ever finds with meaning is he eventually decides to use all of his money to build a park. And that kind of plays into the narrative as well, because earlier on, he was the guy who rubber stamps whether or not a building project can get approved. And these people who wanted to build a park, he kept refusing it, And so like this idea where something like a park, that actually is something that, generations build their memories around, little kids playing in the park and things like that. And so this idea of a garden, especially a community garden where everybody's invested and, in a big city like Sapporo, it's a really cool story. If it is true, and even if it's not true, I still like it. So,
yeah, I should ask him if it's true, but it feels true because the one sister dying at age 42 feels kind of random, like real life. And it's just like he doesn't spend a lot of time on it. There's a full page panel of the display at her gravesite, kind of where they would have the urn of the ashes or whatever.
Right.
But it's not like we don't get a big drawn out story of how she died or anything like that. That's not what's important here. It's that the other sister is now by herself and keeping the garden up, and then what's going to happen. So
yeah, it definitely does. There's too many details that are so unique that it doesn't feel fictional. And he did a story, his book before this, the Ezo Toy Company. I don't know if you read that. It was also a very unique Sapporo-based story. So what I'm curious about is, if it is true, how is he getting these stories? Like, where is he picking them up?
Yeah. That's a good question. He must be like really involved in the community to pick up these things.
Yeah, exactly. I live in a huge city in Nagoya, and I have no idea what any of the local lore is about here. So
no, same here.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I really like this book. I recommend it highly to people who are interested in it. Actually, I think it would suit almost anybody unless you're just a straight up Marvel and DC guy. It's a very appealing story. It reads very quickly, and the art is very accomplished and playful, and I think he did a really great job. I think I'm really excited to see where Ian's career goes from here. And I'm using the word career. I know that he's not like probably making all of his money just from selling comics, but I think he's in a spot where he wants to be. This is it's a really cool, it's really cool watching his style evolve over the years. And so I look forward to seeing the future books that he puts out.
Yeah. Those other books you mentioned of his from some years ago, I think I talked with Mulele on the show about them a long time ago, and those were good. I had not seen his work recently, especially since we don't have the comics events that we used to have.
Yeah. You can blame me for that.
Well, yeah, you had one of them, but also like the Kaigai Festival doesn't exist anymore.
That's true. I have actually spoken to the organizers from the Kaigai Manga Festa to see if they would want to collaborate on doing a new thing. But I just, with my job now, I don't have the time or resources to do that. So, but there was a very brief period for a few years there where I felt like the Japanese kind of zine and mini comics community was going to take off and be something. But it took a lot of nurturing and work to kind of get the little bit of community that we did have going. So,
Okay, so check this out. I'll link to whatever online presence he's got. The third season of the 1960s Batman TV show is almost universally regarded as the worst of the three for a variety of reasons. It is notable for having far more female villains than the other two seasons, plus a female superhero in the form of Batgirl. But far from being a feminist statement, it seems to bring out the male chauvinism in 1960s culture all the more. On our Patreon show Bat Bits, my brother Paul and I recently talked with novelist Nancy Northcott about two of Batman's cringiest episodes from a feminist point of view, as part of our series discussing the portrayal of women throughout the series. And coming up on the show, we'll be discussing the long-delayed third issue of Batman Meets Godzilla. We'll spend more time on how the recaps at the start of episodes were constructed, dig into more early drafts of Batman scripts, and more. Get access to Bat Bits by supporting our Patreon at $2 a month. At $4 a month, you also get our monthly show Silver Age Batman, where we're looking at many of the wacky Batman stories from the 50s. This month, Paul and I look at the return of Batwoman in The Challenge of Batwoman from Batman 105. Also at the $4 level, you can still access our past series that covered the first 50 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, and more. Follow our Patreon for free and get access to the first 2 episodes of both Bat Bits and Silver Age Batman. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support. Okay, now Emmett has joined me. Hello, Emmett.
Hello.
So, this comic called Loon News, it originated in a kind of underground newspaper called Loon News, and then spun off and became Loon News, the comic strip. So, I struck up a correspondence with Eric Johnson, who made the strip. He's a fellow podcaster. He did the strip between 1987 and 2009. And he's now publishing a strip a day on Patreon. You can, if you go to his Patreon, which I'll link to, you can see a few of the strips for free and then support it and get a strip a day, or you can buy the whole thing in PDF, which I guess is what he sent us. It's over almost 350 pages. It's like his entire history as a artist.
Cartoonist. Yeah. Cartoonist. But I think just for people looking up, it's the Strips for Your Pleasure is the name of the collection. Eric Paul Johnson, Strips for Your Pleasure, 1986 to 2009.
Yeah, it took me a while to catch the joke there, but yeah.
Oh, well, we'll have things to say about that.
So, I mean, the early stuff, I mean, he goes way back to the early stuff. Oh, there's the cat. The stuff that, nobody would ever publish. It's like stuff he did when he was a little kid at the beginning. So before 1987, I think. And then as you go through the book, the art gets better over time. But at some point in here, he mentioned that he had submitted this to a syndicate at some point. At the time, the syndicate told him that he had promise as a writer, but the art and lettering were not very good, which at the time they weren't. If you go to the later strips, the lettering is a lot better, and the art is quite a bit better too. It's not so shaky like it was. But I do agree that I think I thought the best part of his best skill shown here is that he gets like kind of the rhythm of a 4-panel strip. I felt that felt very like ready for prime time. He kind of
I would say studied. Like he's absorbed that, as you say, that rhythm.
Yeah.
He understands that there is a rhythm.
Uh-huh.
and he's going for it. He's going to try and recreate what he understands rhythm to mean, which has impacts on things like art, humor, pacing.
The pacing.
And again, this is what I was referring to before. We can sort of discuss how successful he is in that regard, but there is a sense of this is what other cartoonists are doing. I'm now going to do that.
Yeah.
So imitation.
And some people who attempt this don't absorb that, and their strips are really rough to read. But yeah, he absorbed that. He got that pacing for and it's very Bloom County influenced by his own admission. It kind of looks like Bloom County a little bit. Certainly the lettering with the no word balloon, just a little line coming from the speaker. That's, of course, that Bloom County ripped that off of Doonesbury, but then other people rip it off of Bloom County. What was your take on the strip?
Okay, so I had this experience when I started reading it, where, as you say, he starts with his sort of childhood juvenilia, like all the like cartooning he was doing as a kid. There's that story of his father meeting that famous cartoonist, and he got an autographed cartoon, and that sort of inspired him. And also he talks about Jim Jeffries and the idea of, oh, you can make a lot of money being a syndicated cartoonist. I better get on that.
Yeah.
So from the jump, there is this emphasis on fame and money and how this is all about making money. So I was reading that and I was going, oh, that's an interesting perspective for a young cartoonist to have. You know, you're starting out and you are you're trying to get motivated, and this is your sort of your motivation. I assumed I was reading the introduction. Right? I assumed, oh, this is the introduction. This is setting the scene. This is you've got your little interstitial bits of narration to give context for these early works. Okay, I see what you're doing. And then just kept going. And then I realized, oh no, this is the book. This is the approach we're taking for the book, where there's going to be these strips and there will be this sort of contextualizing narration in the strips. And at that point, I had a bit of a sinking feeling because I was like, if you need to go out of your way to explain the joke, continually explain the joke, there isn't a joke there that's easily communicable. So that was my initial impression, was this is somebody who understands that these things need jokes and is going to tell us jokes, but doesn't quite get what a joke is. And part of what a joke is I think communicable.
There's a lot of it that is so based on his personal life that he has to explain like who this character is and whatever. And you know, that's not going to work if you're trying to syndicate it, because you can't run the explanation, you know, get put in the footnotes along with the strip.
So you have that other detail too, because then it becomes, and this is where I started becoming interested in it, because then it becomes almost unintentionally revealing. We were sort of straying into this area of here's somebody burying their soul, but not intending to. And part of it is, here are my friends. Here are people I'm sexually attracted to. Here are people I know in life that I would like to have sex with, but I'm not going to have sex with them. But in this cartoon, maybe we could have sex. No, better not, because I shouldn't be taking advantage of them in this cartoon. And it's almost like, you know, what if Crumb chickened out every time, right?
Yeah.
and I'm not going to give plaudits. It's not a moral victory, because at the same time, but you still thought it, and you're inviting us to think it with you. And I don't even know who Cindy is. You know, so there was this. I started becoming interested in the strips, not because of the humor, which I didn't think worked, not because of the art, which I also was basic, but then the syndicated cartoons tend to have they can't have basic art setup. But there was this sort of bearing of one's soul that's sort of coming through, and I was like, well, I'm seeing a person emerge here. I'm seeing a person from a specific time in a specific place, which is Arizona in the 1980s and 1990s. And it's giving me a sense of what this person's cultural intake is. And I had the thought of, if the internet was freely accessible and available, I don't think this cartoon strip would have existed. Because a lot of it seemed distraction. What's happening in the news today? What's happening? Okay, let's talk about censorship of music and how Al Gore's wife is up there saying that music is giving teenagers ideas that they need to murder their friends because of gun violence in rap. And all the references to the door. There's this whole passage about the Doors, which just keeps going. It is very much a person who feels, I'm going to express this and I'm going to share it, but has no understanding of how to hook your interest. So it's basically just info dumping. Here's what's going on in my head right now. And the only medium I have to hand is a comic strip. Like, what would message boards have done to this guy? What would Facebook have done to this guy in 1986, 1987, 1980? Like, that would have sent him off on an entirely different path. So I sort of started looking on it as this, as I said, personal reveal, and also this time capsule. And that's where, before we started recording, I think I shared with you some cartoons and stuff, and from other people, where he has this frame of reference, and it's usually like really popular television shows from the day, but like not particularly remarkable television shows, not particularly like, again, it's like middle level, constantly middle level. And I just found that weirdly, I felt like it was a study of a time, and I was getting a sense of, and I grew up in that time. I remember that time.
Me too.
And I was reading and watching and a lot of other things, but this was like very sort of set selection of references, and he just keeps returning to those same references. And I read an interview with him, because I went to him. I went deep.
Yeah.
I read an interview with him from, I want to say, about 15 years ago.
Okay.
And
who interviewed him?
Oh, a friend of his.
Okay.
And it was just the same references again. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, this is years after the fact. You're still talking about Bloom County. Like, you're still talking about, you're still making this joke about, the suicide humor as well. Like, there's always jokes about suicide.
Like, yeah, well, there was a time when that was more acceptable than it is now. If you watch like 50 sitcoms or something, this is way off topic, but I have a DVD of Jack Benny Show episodes. And there's this one, I think it's from the 50s sometime. Jack is in a department store, and he keeps pestering this store clerk who's played by Mel Blanc. And eventually the store clerk gets so desperate that he goes behind a pillar and shoots himself. And I was like, what? How is this funny? But at the time in the 50s, I guess that was okay. But so yeah, I mean, suicide references, like now there would be like a warning on it, like this comic strip contains references to suicide, if they included it at all.
Well, I mean, that could be, yes, that'd be true. But I don't want it to turn into, do you know, like there's this thing now, there's this sort of shibboleth out there, particularly in right-wing media, that, you couldn't make Blazing Saddles today. Right? You couldn't make jokes about the N-word, and you couldn't make jokes about farting on camera, and you couldn't make you couldn't make those jokes today. And I say, those jokes are about you. Those jokes are aimed at you. The reason you couldn't make that today is because you lot would like, sue or like go on Fox News and call for the death penalty for the director. Mel Brooks should be shot out of a cannon. That's who the jokes are targeting. So there's this sort of intentional misreading of media and this idea of censorship that we have today. And with suicide humor, right, you can make suicide jokes, and it doesn't necessarily require trigger warnings or anything of the sort. Like Peter David's comic work, a lot of Peter David's jokes, the late Peter David, a lot of Peter David's jokes involve suicide to a worrying degree. I found myself reading old X Factor comics and saying, that's like the third or fourth reference to killing yourself I've seen.
Wow, okay.
I don't know what's going on here. My point is, you can tell these jokes if you bring the reader with you. Whereas and maybe your Jack Benny reference is relevant here too. Whereas what I thought here was it was like an echo of a joke about suicide, where the character just out of nowhere pulls a gun and points it to his head, and then his friend is like, "Don't miss." That's the joke. And I was like, that's not a joke, but that shows that you are aware that people are making light of taking one's life in media, and you're echoing it here. But you've not invested in, well, how do you bring the reader in the specific story along about this? And that's where I found it fascinating. I keep saying that, but I genuinely was like, it's like, here's another media reference from the time for you. Get Smart. You were this close.
Missed it by that much. Yeah, I mean, I supported his comic because I actually wanted to support one of his podcasts, which he quit doing. He quit doing the podcast, but I'm still getting the strip in my email every day, and it's like, I think it's in the 90s somewhere right now. And
yeah. So just to your earlier point, the Patreon is sharing his archive. That's what it's sharing.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Right. And yeah, a lot of the time, I mean, I get what the joke is supposed to be. I don't necessarily laugh. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. But I don't feel bad about saying that because he did these 30 years ago. But
yeah, no. And again, look, this is not. I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. I'm not attacking the person. I think it's. I genuinely look at this at somebody putting a lot of themselves into a work, and I always credit that. I will always look at that and go, "Hey, you did it." And it's more than a lot of people can say. My thing is that I just look at it and go, this is early work from somebody writing in it was basically a zine, right? It was a sort of newspaper newsletter type thing.
Yeah.
So, I know the work. I know what I find interesting is, though, if you follow his career through this collection, if you keep, like, the art does improve.
Oh yeah,
like his style improves, as you said, the lettering and the production, let's say, improves, but the point of view never really shifts. Like it gets more nominally ambitious. We start having, because there was always these sort of sequences where, so you've got Eric, the character Eric is the sort of the self-insert character who is desperate to have sex and just keeps talking about who he wants to have sex with, and then the people in his life who are having sex and how jealousy is of them. That's a recurring thing. So Mike is his friend who is more successful in relationships.
Yeah.
So we'll hear about him, and again, it's really fascinating because it's like, it's not just, oh, Mike's going to have sex with this girl. It'll be like, Mike's going to have sex with the girl from Cheers. Mike's going to have sex with the girl from Married with Children. Mike's going to have sex with Kim Cattrall.
Yeah, he's taking advantage of being in a comic strip, and he can do it with whoever. I mean, I don't know that I would want to publish it that way, though. You get a lawsuit thrown at you, but...
Well, it's clearly not actually happening. So the idea is that he's just so successful. That's the kind of women he's having sex with. But the girl from Married with Children, the girl from Cheers, and I think he in his narration, his little explanation, he says, "I didn't realize there were two Saviks in Star Trek." So like one was Kim Cattrall, and one was Kirstie
Alley.
Kirstie Alley. He doesn't name the women usually. That's the thing. It's like, this is a girl from a television show I'm attracted to. And it's a popular television show. It's not, I used to go dark with my attractions, Tim. who's the most obscure focus of interest I could have?
He came up with a member of the Go-Go's whose name I didn't even know, but he named her. I was always more for Jane Weedland, but
there you go. Oh yeah, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Yes, Joan of Arc. Very hot. So I just find that like interesting because it's this popular idea of what an attractive person is to want to be attracted to. Mm-hmm. And it's still somehow alienating.
It occurs to me that kind of, the girl from so-and-so is kind of a pre-internet-y thing, because now you could just easily look it up. But if you don't have the internet and you just see the person on TV and you never quite catch their actual name, that's how we would have referred to the person.
We need a Shazam for your sexual fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah, point your phone at the TV.
Who is this? Yeah. I think you have a lot of people who are going to Tumblr or going to Webtoons or do cartooning, and they would go into this sort of self-analysis, self-humiliation through the cartooning. This is not new, and they would sort of excavate their soul for the reader.
Well, you mentioned Crumb. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Crumb sort of hit that note, and I think a lot of people since have followed it, and maybe they've done it in a more ironic way. A lot of women cartoonists who are sort of taking that idea and then flipping it. And a lot of that, Dory Seta, who we talked about, Kumar and I talked about a few years ago on this podcast. Again, like this idea of I'm going to like pour all of my deepest, darkest shit on the page and you're going to read it and I'm going to humiliate myself doing it. And like, this is going to maybe reveal something about ourselves. That's all interesting stuff. And that's something that we still see today, as I was saying, particularly in the online comic space. Mm-hmm. I don't think Eric knows he's doing that, though. That's the thing. That's why I'm kind of, Tim gave me something interesting here, because there is that sort of, there's that gap. There's that gap in, not just in execution of a strip, but that gap in understanding of what am I actually doing here? Mm-hmm. And again, that is something that, as a younger creator, you unwittingly do. Mm-hmm. But you usually sort of break out of it, or somebody sort of sits you down and says, well, what are you trying to say? And I don't think that happened. I think that's what's I'm observing here. Again, this is all my impression. I have no more information to go on, so I'm not going to make any judgment call. I'm just saying this is my impression of what I'm reading.
But yeah, it's interesting that he did it so. I mean, I don't think I could ever do this personal of a comic, as a teenager or now or anywhere in between. But yeah, he kind of went to, I'm going to be a character and my friends are going to be characters in the strip, and I'm going to talk about all the things I'm really feeling, like I can't find a girlfriend and all that. Yeah, I'd never do that, but But yeah, that's an interesting idea that he's doing like a Crumb type thing or whatever, but isn't quite aware that he's doing it. That's interesting.
There's a fascinating. I need to retire that word. There is a moment when apparently Mike, the character of Mike, who has been identified in the comic as his friend and apparently is his friend in real life, and he's credited on the strips. Mm-hmm. Mike's sexual identity is trans. There is a trans wish fulfillment that is expressed. And then this character, the trans version of Mike, becomes another character and is introduced to the strip. And there's this sort of, oh, well, you want to be a woman. I'll let a woman be in this comic who is also you. And then Mike meets that woman and there's, I think I know you. And like, it just sort of just happens. And it's, I kind of want to hear from Mike. Like, what's Mike's feelings about all this? But there was this sort of, this comic place is somehow in the world, is taking in things that are happening in the world, is reflecting that world back to it. And yet at the same time, it's somehow closed off from the world because the author, the creator in this case, is saying, okay, well, you want to be a woman? Okay, I'll put the woman in the comic. And it's just, I find it really interesting because I think now there would be maybe, well, this is what the comic's about now. It's incidental. It's entirely incidental.
Yeah, and then we have some Star Trek strips.
Yeah. Let's go. The Jim Morrison sequence. I keep going back to the Jim Morrison sequence because he's got this other character, Vic, who is named after a bully that he had in school. So he just has him pissed drunk and hiding behind a boulder. He never depicts him. I wonder if because he's worried if Vic finds out he'll come and beat him up. I don't know. But he's never, I don't believe he's ever, is he shown? Or does he, because sometimes a head popped up and I wasn't sure if that was Vic or Mike. I thought it was Mike, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I was kind of short on time. I skipped around through the book, read different sections, but I didn't.
Okay, so there's this character, he's usually passed out behind a boulder. And in this, there's a sequence, I think it's, where are we? April 26th, 1990, where you have a sequence of our nominal hero complaining about people liking who Jim Morrison is. Now, again, there was an upswing of interest in the Doors in the early 90s. You had the Oliver Stone movie and Val Kilmer playing him. You had teenagers being exposed to the Doors for the first time. Maybe their parents passed down the albums to them. So there's this sort of interest in Jim Morrison, people going to Père Lachaise in Paris to visit the grave. Yes, I did that. I am that guy. But I also went to Oscar Wilde, so give me kudos points. So he's talking about Jim Morrison, and he's he was a bad musician because he was drunk and stoned the entire time. So why do people like him? My heroes have their faults too. John Lennon did drugs, but he wised up and stopped. Drugs didn't kill him. No, somebody else did. Why? Maybe because Jim wasn't a lonely, depressed virgin all the time. Could be. That's the joke. John Lennon... John Lennon was still doing drugs. And what does that mean? Why is that a point of contention? Why does that matter? What is the point scored against Jim Morrison for being a drug user or an alcohol abuser? You might argue that the entire point of the Doors to the Realm of Perception, is that what they're named after? That is the point, to be really high and think this is good music. So I find there's a sort of moral indignation about drugs, which I think is a very 1980s thing. Because that's the Reagan, Nancy Reagan.
Yeah, just say no.
Just say no. Who's in that with her? Paul Newman? Wasn't Paul Newman in the video with Nancy Reagan? Just say no.
There was Mr. T who did
Mr. T, yeah. And like that's what was out there in the culture. And it's just been sort of reproduced back into the strip.
Yeah. I mean, hippies would never say, I don't like Jim Morrison because he does drugs.
No. No, they wouldn't, Tim. I just think The Doors, Jim Morrison, Light My Fire are made up to be better than sliced bread by ever-aging yuppies trying to keep the 1960s around until forever. Fair point. Fair point, right? Interesting observation. But it's sort of, again, it's like, oh, it's just yuppies. It's just yuppies trying to keep the 60s alive. Why are yuppies trying to keep the 60s alive? There's a sort of tabloid headline understanding of the world being sort of trotted out here. Mm-hmm. And I weirdly relate to it. Because I think when I was a sheltered kid, I was sort of repeating uncritically views that I had received from my parents or from the dominant media of my time or the local parish priest. So I kind of relate to it. But you question it, you break out of it, you fight back. And I read these comics and I go, where was the intellectual challenge that set this creator on a different path? And I'm not finding it.
One thing I meant to say about Eric's comic, I don't blame him for talking about making money. I always hope to make money from podcasting, but as he knows, that's also far from a sure thing. I've got it a bit past the point of breaking even, but it's never going to be my main source of income. But I keep doing it because I enjoy it, and I hope Eric has enjoyed his comics creation and his podcasting. By the way, I'm linking to that 2010 interview of Eric Paul Johnson in the show notes, as well as his Patreon and Ian M's website. Follow us on Blue Sky at Decon Comics. Join our Facebook page or the more active group. Listen to our audio-only videos on YouTube. All of those are linked from deconstructingcomics.com, as is our voicemail. You can communicate with us via social media or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com. And of course, we'd love it if you shared episodes with your friends and left us a review in Apple Podcasts or other podcast outlets. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is from bensound.com. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. See you Wednesday for discussion of Jack Kirby's Black Panther, issues 3 and 4. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.